The chandeliers trembled as whispers roared across the marble hall, a glittering ocean of silk gowns and tuxedos freezing mid-sentence. A matte black Lamborghini eased to a stop at the mansion steps, gullwing door lifting like a curtain. She stepped out, Amara, draped in liquid silver, confidence stitched into every seam. 3 children followed in matching ivory, triplets with bright, curious eyes and the same smile. Cameras flashed. The Okafor crest gleamed over the doors they once slammed in her face. Tonight, the same family that mocked her for being poor watched her arrive like a storm they couldn't predict or survive. You're wondering how a girl who used to count coins to buy Gary is now the woman who quieted a ballroom of billionaires with the sound of her heels. You're wondering who fathered the triplets, how she got that car, and why the Okafors, Lagos royalty, are swallowing their pride in front of a woman they once called a charity. I know what you're thinking. But if you knew the truth of what happened behind the designer curtains and polished doors, you wouldn't judge her eyes. You'd clap. You'd stand. Once upon a weekday morning on Baligan Street, before sunrise rinsed the sky, Amara balanced a tray of headscarves and bangles through puddles that remembered last night's rain. She wasn't born into money, she was born into motion. Her mother sewed fabrics under a torn umbrella. Her father had hands that could fix anything except poverty. Amara studied at night, scribbling dreams in the margins of second-hand textbooks, promising herself she'd graduate into more than survival. She didn't want a throne, she wanted a door, one that didn't slam. Chike Okafor walked into her stall like a breeze that didn't know its own power. He bought 2 scarves he didn't need and returned the next day for a third, asking questions with the curiosity of a man who'd never been told no long enough to appreciate yes. He had the easy smile of old money, confident, careless, comfortable, and he talked to Amara like she was a person, not a price tag. She mistook warmth for depth, charm for character. The heart is a poor accountant, it records what it wants and ignores what it owes. Meeting the Okafors felt like entering a museum where everything was priceless and nothing was touched. Patriarch Chief Sebastian measured people like assets, return on investment, risk, reputation. Matriarch Lady Uju carried elegance like a sword. At the first dinner, Krista chimed and judgment followed. "What school again?" she asked, as if the answer were a stain. "What do your parents do?" The table smiled like a portrait, perfect, cold, painted. Amara sat straight, answered gently, and swallowed the verdict hidden in their compliments. "You're humble," they said, as if humility were mode. At Lady Uju's charity gala, Amara wore a borrowed gown and a brave face. The whispers came sharp and soft. Is that Saturn or sentiment? Where did she find that clutch, ABA market? A cousin laughed too loudly. Someone accidentally mispronounced her name. Chike squeezed her fingers under the table and mouthed, "Ignore. But the thing about small cuts is how they bleed in secret." She smiled for the photographs, learned the choreography of their word, how to stand without taking space, how to speak without making sound. Love is loud at first and then it has to walk. Chike missed dates with apologies shaped like flowers that withered by morning. He promised to defend her, then asked her to be patient with them. "They'll come around," he said, handing her silence disguised as compromise. He moved like Lagos traffic, stop, start, excuse. Amara learned the math of his affection, how far to bend before she broke, how much to forgive to feel chosen. Her heart kept writing checks that the family bounced. It happened on a Sunday thick with heat, the sky a white plate. Amara arrived for brunch with Akara in a paper bag for the staff. Lady Uju met her in the foyer with a smile pulled tight as a head wrap. "Family only," she said, stepping forward as if to hug, stepping sideways as if to block. "You understand, It's optics." The guard, young, eager, apologetic, closed the gate that had once glided. Metal kissed metal with a finality that branded her skin. Amara stood outside, the Akara cooling, her hope cooling faster. That night, Amara packed her dignity between two jeans and a resolve stitched with fire. She didn't shout. She didn't beg. She left check a note written in steady handwriting: "Love should not require me to be small. I refuse to be the apology at your family's table." She walked out of the apartment carrying nothing the Okafors bought her, only a spine that had learned the weight of self-respect. On the road, Lagos hummed with restless ambition. Amara listened. It sounded like her. Here is what the Okafors never saw: while they perfected disdain, she perfected discipline. She took a small loan from a women's cooperative, turned her knack for fabrics into a boutique pop-up, then an online store, then wholesale contracts. She learned numbers the way she once learned notes, patiently, precisely. At midnight, she studied logistics. At dawn, she negotiated supply. By noon, she was packing orders with care notes written in gold ink: "May you wear this as if the day were your runway." Customers posted. Influencers noticed. A fashion house called. The seed was not a seed anymore. Success in Lagos is a rumor that becomes a headline, then a target. A rival tried to undercut her with counterfeit stock. A supplier lost a shipment that she'd already paid for. Then came the phone call, the kind that changes the temperature in a room, a silent investor offering expansion capital with terms so generous they were suspicious. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you're inevitable," the voice said. She didn't know then how true, and how dangerous, that word would become. And that is how we arrive at tonight: the mansion the Okafors built, the ballroom they curated, the guest list they prune like a topiary. The Lamborghini is not a flex, it is punctuation. The triplets are not props, they are promise, living proof that love, when it comes right, multiplies. The head of security, once instructed to manage her presence, now steps forward with a deference he can't quite disguise. The strings soften. The whispers not. Somewhere inside, a matriarch's grip tightens on a crystal glass. But this time, it is not Amara who shakes. Before this night ends, truths will unspool like satin. Contracts will surface. An heirloom will switch hands. A confession will crawl out under chandelier light. And a name, one the Okafors have protected like a crown, will find a new home. If you think the Lamborghini is the headline, you're not reading the right story. The real engine is about to start. The string quartet tried to reclaim the room, but curiosity had already eaten the melody. Amara gave the valet a soft nod, then offered her arm to the first of the triplets. The boys wore tiny tuxes with satin lapels, their sisters' braids were threaded with pearls like dawn caught in a net. A master of ceremonies stammered through a welcome. Across the marble, Chief Sebastian's smile calcified. Lady Uju pressed a napkin to her lip as if to dab away a word she didn't want to say. The hall rearranged itself around Amara without asking permission. "Amara," Lady Uju breathed, gliding forward, perfume like a verdict. "How unexpected. I trust you found the invitation." She let the silence do the work. Amara's eyes held steady, kind as a rainy Sunday. "I did," she said. "It was addressed to the woman I used to be. I brought the woman I became." A cousin tittered, reaching for a waiter's tray, champagne. The glass tilted just enough to threaten silk. Somehow, Amara's aide caught it midair, intact. He smiled at the cousin as if returning a borrowed apology. Months before exile, at a foundation gala, the family seamstress forgot the hem on Amara's dress. When she walked, the thread pulled like embarrassment. A cousin spilled Malo with the accuracy of a surgeon. "Oh dear," the woman chimed, "accidents happen." Amara spent the night laughing as if her dignity were waterproof. At midnight, she learned to hem in a mirror, fingers pricked, eyes steady. In the morning, she wrote the seamstress a thank you in gold ink for the lesson. The next time anyone pulled a thread, she knew exactly where to cut. "Your children are adorable," Lady Uju said, shaping adorable into audacious. "Thank you," Amara replied. They are very good with names. They remember who was kind. A hush fluttered. One of the boys peered up at the chandelier. Mommy, it looks like rain caught in a net. Laughter rippled, unscripted, disarming. The MC, seizing air, announced, a toast to our sponsors, Okafor Foundation. The LED wall shimmered. Letters paused. Then the graphic resolved into a different name, a Moro Collective. The hall inhaled. Chief Sebastian did not. Glitch, Chief Sebastian murmured to the AV director, Joe Lever. Amara raised a palm. No glitch. Tonight's medical fund was underwritten by the collective. She turned to the donors. Every naira audited. Every invoice published. Her phone buzzed. Her counsel texted a single line, logistics deal, executed. Amara's gaze slid to the far table where Okafor's COO went pale. She had just acquired Kestrel Logistics, the artery that pumped imported fabrics through Okafor retail. The contract in her clutch, cream stock, gold ink signatures, wasn't a flourish. It was a fulcrum. Before she left, the family attorney slid a prenup across glass, an allowance, a non-disclosure, a clause that treated love like a stipend. It's standard, he said. Standard is a synonym for small. Amara did not sign. Instead, she studied contracts the way some study faces. Clause by clause, until language obeyed. F saw her notes, tidy, relentless, margins lit with gold ink. You write receipts, F said, impressed. Not just for money. For moments. From then, Amara kept 2 ledgers, one for accounts, one for indignities. Both would balance. The MC recovered, pivoting with the grace of a man who'd learned to survive rich people. A word from our principal benefactor. Amara stepped to the mic. This fund will sponsor neonatal units in 3 general hospitals. In honor of the woman I used to be, who couldn't afford one private consultation. Applause started in the cheap seats, wait staff, drivers, nurses, rising like a tide the front row couldn't command. The Okafor table clapped because optics are louder than truth. In the shadow of the applause, Chief Sebastian texted furiously. Nothing he ordered moved. Okafor's wine vendor had difficulty with delivery, punishment wrapped in logistics. Samoa slipped to Amara's side, Plan B. She nodded. 10 minutes later, cases rolled in from a boutique distributor she'd backed when banks wouldn't. Labels gleamed, cockside. Donors noticed. Resourceful, someone murmured, recalibrating the map of allegiance in his head. The COO checked his phone, then checked it again. Kestrel's portal now required an A.Mora authorization for priority lanes. The artery beat to a new pulse. A foundation may be charity, supply chain is power. There was a family portrait day when the photographer ran out of film just as Amara stepped in. Later, online, Amara saw herself trimmed from the frame like a bruise. She didn't howl. She launched a campaign, We Don't Crop Women Out. Tailors, seamstresses, students, nurses, women who'd been edited from rooms, posted photos in dresses from her line, tags like flags. Orders spiked. Brand equity calcified. When people asked about the campaign's origin, she smiled. A happy accident. Translation, another receipt, filed. Lady Uju's smile thinned. The children, do they have a surname? The question swung in, dagger hidden. Amara's daughter tilted her head, bracelets chiming. Mommy says names are promises, not cages. A few guests hid a grin behind glass. Amara didn't flinch. They bear the name of the man who earned it, she said, gentle as rain. Tonight is for hospitals. Tomorrow is for names. It landed like prophecy. Across the hall, Chuck stared at the triplets as if seeing a reflection in glass he hadn't known was a mirror. Her phone buzzed again. Silent investor arriving. Green tie. She looked up as a man with a green tie slipped in unnoticed by those who only see what they already respect. He gave Amara a two-finger salute that meant, everything's where you packed it. F's second message followed, title search complete. Motion to transfer covenant filed 9 a.m. tomorrow. They'll hear it before lunch. A covenant on what? The question rose like heat. Lady Uju found herself without moving her hand. A server approached with a silver tray. On it lay an envelope, cream with a gold ink seal. Amara lifted it, met Chief Sebastian's eyes, and smiled the way you do when you're about to return something that never belonged to someone. Chief, she said, voice low, carrying. You once asked what school I attended. She tapped the envelope. Consider this my alumni contribution. The hall leaned forward. Inside was not money. Inside was leverage, signed, witnessed, beautifully itemized. The night had stopped being a party. It had become an audit. The envelope looked too delicate to carry what it carried. Amara slid a finger under the gold seal, lifted a stack of documents that smelled faintly of ink and inevitability, and handed the top page to the MC. The LED wall blinked, a live feed of the document appeared, letterhead, signatures, dates, each line as calm as a gavel. Memorandum of Understanding, the MC read, voice careful. The Okafor Foundation commits to funding 3 neonatal units by Q4, signed Chief Sebastian Okafor and Lady Uju Okafor. The date was 2 years old. Below, an addendum, failure to execute triggers transfer of naming rights to the highest contributing external partner. The camera zoomed on a second signature, a Moro Collective. A mama rose from the medical community table, heads of hospital departments, pediatric nurses with tired eyes. One doctor stood. We sent proposals. We waited. We lost infants we could have saved. The ballrooms shin-thinned. Chief Sebastian's smile returned like a mask picked up from the floor. Delays, he said smoothly. Regulatory issues. Amara didn't argue. She simply raised another page. The LED wall populated with dates, emails, courier stamps. Each regulatory issue was answered by a counter document, permit secured, license cleared, land allocated. F had arranged the chain like a necklace, every link undeniable. We don't litigate in this room, Amara said softly. We illuminate. Neonatal unit naming transfers at tomorrow's hearing. Consider this a courtesy preview. Long before the Mao, in a private family chapel after a charity gala, Amara found Lady Uju alone, eyes glazed over a row of candles. A photograph sat at the base of the altar, an infant in a silver frame. My first, Lady Uju whispered, voice frayed. We didn't have what we needed then. I swore, God knows I swore, that no mother would watch a child slip away for lack of machines. She wiped her cheek and stood tall by morning, oath tucked beneath couture. Amara carried the oath in her pocket like a stone. Now, under chandelier light, Lady Uju tried to reclaim the narrative. We prefer discretion when giving. Not spectacle. A smattering of polite applause. Amara inclined her head. Discretion is beautiful when the work is done. When it isn't, spectacle is sometimes the only ambulance available. The line landed. The donors recalibrated again. Chike's gaze swung between the document and the triplets, memory riffling past evenings he'd missed, calls he'd ignored, a vow he'd whispered and then treated like wallpaper. He remembered Amara on a bare mattress studying procurement forms, how he'd kissed her hair and said, tomorrow. He'd run out of tomorrows. The screen flashed the Kestrel logistic seal and his stomach dropped. He knew what the artery meant. Chief Sebastian raised a hand. Let us settle this away from guest. We will wire the outstanding sum tonight. F stepped forward, crisp. The Mao doesn't sell absolution. Performance cannot be substituted by payment after breach, the transfer clause is automatic. She smiled without showing teeth. We read the contract you wrote. We just respected it. Phones surfaced like periscopes. A blogger in a shimmering kaftan leaf tweeted with fingers that flew. The story metastasized. Wealthy family defaults on neonatal pledge. Benefactor steps in. A councilwoman angled her chair toward Amara. We've been desperate for someone who doesn't perform charity, someone who delivers it, she said, voice low, calculation honest. The man with the green tie drifted to Amara's shoulder, nodded to the MC, and took the mic as if the floor were his living room. For disclosure, he said, I am the silent investor. My name is Abdul Karim. My firm backed the collective's expansion after watching the We Don't Crop Women Out campaign. We underwrote at single-digit interest and equity vested to public impact, not just profit. He let the room swallow that. We prefer partners who keep receipts and oaths. Oaths matter, Amara said, turning to the Okafors, in business and in families. She didn't say vows. She didn't have to. Jack looked like a man caught between a script and a mirror. Lady Uju pressed 2 fingers to her temple. Chief Sebastian's phone vibrated, a relentless insect. Nothing answered the noise. We can still do this together, Amara added, surprising even herself. We'll accept the transfer. You can match our contribution within 90 days. Unit signage can read, Okafor Amara neonatal win. Not optics, outcomes. A beat. In that beat the room saw a woman who didn't come to break so much as to build where others had stalled. A distant cousin, oily confident, raised a glass. All noble. But we should ask what everyone is thinking. He turned to the children. Who is their father? The silence was engineered. Camera screened. That single question tried to drag the night back to the mud. Amara's daughter squeezed her brother's hands and lifted her chin. Amara took a breath that filled her ribs with steadiness, then faced the crowd. Tomorrow is for names, she had said. Tomorrow had arrived early. She crooked a finger at the AV director. The LED wall shifted to a scanned certificate, seal, signature, and a line of text that could move empires. Since you insist, she said, voice level, let's talk about names. The hall leaned forward as the surname came into focus. The LED wall sharpened, pixels braiding into a seal from the Lagos State Registry. Under it, 3 birth certificates lined like stepping stones. Father, Chike Sebastian Okafor. Surname, Okafor. Dates. Registration numbers. A registrar's looping signature. The room forgot to breathe. The cousin who'd asked the question tried to smile and swallowed it whole. Chike's chair scraped marble. He stood without meaning to, as if a string inside him had been tugged by the truth. F's voice carried, cool as courthouse air. Acknowledge of paternity filed 11 months ago. Witnessed. Notarized. Entered into the civil register. A subsequent motion sought to seal the record, she paused. But the court denied it. The motion had a law firm letterhead everyone in the room recognized. Chief Sebastian's jaw squared. Lady Uju's hand drifted to her necklace, fingers wearing pearls that suddenly felt like stones. Check found his mouth. I signed. The words fell like bricks. I wanted to announce it properly. Fix things first. He looked at Amara then, apology sketch raw across his face. I was wrong. It wasn't eloquent. It was clean. Somewhere near the back, a staffer exhaled a small prayer into a linen napkin. The screen flipped to a page older than any of them, an excerpt from the Okafor family charter, drafted by a great-grandfather who spoke in clauses. Firstborn children of the line bear the family name and are entitled to equal protection of the estates, irrespective of parentage or class. A wax seal from another century glowed like an ember. F lifted her eyes. Your covenant, Chief. We filed a motion at 9 a.m. to enforce it. Hearing is set tomorrow, before lunch. Chief Sebastian tried to smile with his eyes and failed. We would have welcomed them, he said, in time. The chatter on screen didn't care for choreography. It had fewer adjectives and more teeth. Abdul Karim adjusted his green tie and addressed the room like a patient board. Legacy is a ledger. It balances, or it doesn't. Lady Uju's gaze slid to the triplets and stalled. The girl's braids flashed pulse. One boy had the Okafor forehead, the other child's left-handed fidget. A memory flickered, tiny fingers, a chapel, an oath to neonate words whispered into candle wax. Her armor made a small, human sound. She lowered the napkin. They look like us, she said softly, as if to herself. Then louder, steadier, they are us. Amara nodded to Samuel. He placed a slim folder on the silver tray. Inside, a trust deed established the day the certificates were filed, tuition, healthcare, and a contingency that unlocked only if the Okafor estate contested their name. The beneficiary line read like a lullaby: Adis Amora Okafor, Chidubem Amora Okafor, Somtechukwu Amora Okafor. The whole murmured at the elegance of the trap. There was no trap. Only foresight. A senior uncle rose with a weary politician sigh. This public theater, must we do it here? He gestured at the children with a smile meant to be gentle and landed patronizing. We can discuss like family. Amara didn't move. We tried like family. You closed the gate. She turned to the doctors. Tonight is for the wards. Tomorrow we will meet the court like citizens. After that, perhaps, we can learn how to be family. From the head table, Lady Uju lifted a small velvet case the color of midnight. My mother gave me this when I had nothing but a promise, she said. Inside lay a slender coral bracelet strung with a gold charm, Okafor crest carved thin as breath. She walked, slowly, publicly, to the little girl. Adis, is it? The child nodded. Names are promises, Lady Uju repeated, voice threadbare and true. This is yours. The bracelet slid on, and something old in the room exhaled. Amara's eyes glistened and steadied. Thank you, she said, letting the words be simple. She didn't rewrite history with them. She placed them beside it. Then she faced the donors again. Our neonatal unit doors will not ask mothers to prove worth. They will open because breath is not a luxury. A councilwoman stood first. Madam Amara, my office will co-sponsor the second ward. A shipping magnate added, and my foundation the third. Pledges flowered across the room, not because of spectacle but because accountability is a contagious luxury. Bloggers changed headlines mid-sentence. The quartet found the melody again and, this time, the room followed. Chuck approached as if walking into light he didn't deserve. I can't fix the years, he said quietly. But I can show up for the rest. He glanced at the children. May I? He didn't finish. Amara held his gaze, a measuring that wasn't cruel. Tomorrow, she said. After court. Mercy with a calendar. Samuel's phone buzzed, he flashed a discreet thumbs up. The mansion's outer arch, where a crest sat like a salmon, had just been washed of dust for the evening, revealing a hairline crack that ran through one letter. Tomorrow, Amara had said, is for names. The camera on the LED wall cut to the wrought iron at the entrance, floodlights catching gilt. Something about the crest looked different, like a frame waiting for a second name to join it. The night had stopped being about arrivals. It had become about titles, and who got to keep them. By 7:15 a.m., the city was already sweating. Downfalls argued with the sun, hawkers called miracles in sachets, and outside the High Court on Igbose Road, a line of cameras bloomed like restless flowers. Amara arrived in a navy suit that fit like resolve. The triplets stayed home with storybooks and promises. Today was for paper, not small hands. F walked beside her with a stack of files and a smile like good strategy. The Okafor convoy slid to the curb with tinted reticence. Chief Sebastian in grey, Lady Uju in cream, Chak a step behind, no sunglasses, no shield. An uncle whispered urgently to counsel. A junior associate clutched a folder stamped expert, a last-minute injunction request, the legal equivalent of "stop the clock." It was 8:41. The docket called them at 9 o'clock. The clock did not look worried. The courtroom smelled of polish and paper. The crest above the bench watched the benches below, where Legacy and Brett had come to argue. On one side, Amara Collective and Oz. On the other, Okafor Foundation and Oz. A clerk called silence, gowns rustled. The judge entered with the measured gravity of a man allergic to spectacle. Lagos exhaled and listened. F. Rose. My lord, the first motion concerns enforcement of an unambiguous transfer clause. She moved like a metronome, dates, permits, emails, failures. The LED evidence screen, blessed modernity, showed the timeline like a spine. Okafor counsel tried the word philanthropy as if it were sovereign immunity. The judge stippled his fingers. Philanthropy without performance is publicity, he said. Clause 7 triggers upon breach. I so hold. The gavel was a fingertip. Transfer of naming rights to a Moral Collective, effective immediately. The signage shall include reference to historical pledges, but the principal designation will reflect the executing benefactor. A whisper rode the benches, nurses, mothers, a pediatrician with sleep in his eyes, gratitude turning into text messages. F slid the next file forward. My lord, we seek declaratory relief recognizing the Charter's clause on firstborn protection and the children's right to the family register. Okafor counsel cleared a throat, found an old argument, and dusted it off. The Charter is aspirational, not enforceable. The judge tilted his head. Then why have you invoked it for 72 years to discipline and reward? Paper does not forget the hands that used it. On the screen, photos of the Charter in the family chapel, extracts from internal memos, per the Charter, by the Charter, attendance book from naming ceremonies where the clause was read aloud like liturgy. Chak stood. No one had asked him to. My lord, I acknowledge paternity. I asked the court to protect my children from the politics of my delay. He sat, eyes fixed on the wood grain he'd finally decided to stare down. Declaration granted, the judge said, voice clean. The minors are Okafor's by name and protection. The registrar of families shall enter their names within 7 days. Any action to obstruct shall attract consequences. I will enjoy drafting. A ripple of careful laughter. Even the court stenographer smiled into her machine. Okafor's junior rose with the expert like a life jack. My lord, an urgent application to seal records to protect the minors' privacy. The judge glanced over his half-moons. Privacy is not a synonym for erasure. Application refused. Parties will redact addresses, not identities. The folder went limp, all urgency evaporated into common sense. On the steps, microphones screened like necks at a wedding. A reporter asked if this was revenge. Amara shook her head. This is repair. Lady Uju stepped up, something unclenched in her voice. We accept the court's wisdom. We will match the ward's funding within 90 days. Not optics, oath rediscovered. A nurse behind the cameras wept and pretended she wasn't. By noon, Chief Sebastian had convened a war council under a portrait of the founder who'd never lost a fight because he'd chosen them better. Freeze Kestrel routes, he ordered. The COO coughed softly. Sir, the new service level agreement penalizes unilateral suspension. If we breach, Kestrel can exercise a priority equity option in Okafor Retail's supply arm. Abdul Karim's green tie appeared at the door, uninvited and entirely welcome. Think of it as a pacemaker, he said. It makes sure the artery keeps the body alive. At a quieter corridor in court, Chak found Amara by a window that framed the city's stubborn beauty. Thank you for not burning it all down, he said. I didn't come to burn, she replied. I came to build where there were promises. He learned, finally, to let silence be respectful instead of evasive. Can I take them to lunch after school? Somewhere without cameras. Amara weighed him with a look that loved the children first. Text me the place. And the menu. That evening, the mansion staff hosed down the front arch. Under fresh light, the gilded crest caught a subtle change. A craftsman had retouched the scrollwork, leaving a slim gilded dash beside Okafor, a space, almost ceremonial, for a second name to join, per court order and cosmic symmetry. The guard who once shot that gate ran a gloved finger over the line, nodded to himself, and said to the knight, "Make room." At 8:03 p.m., a courier placed a brown envelope on Samuel's desk at the collective. Inside, anonymous ledgers, wire transfers, and a note in block letters, check the foundation's discretionary account. The knight pivoted. This wasn't about names anymore. It was about numbers, and where they had gone while infants waited on machines that never came.